Hello, good evening and welcome to another edition of Extra Time. My name is Ronan Quirk. We're here until 8 o'clock this evening. We'd love to hear from you. Happy New Year to all of you and all our listeners, loyal listeners. This is our 20th year that we've been on air with you on Extra Time as we roll into 2026. Thank you for all your support over the years. And if you have any comments, text us now on 083 311 3311. We're also on WhatsApp 083 311 3311. We're on Blue Sky if you prefer that form of communication. Extra Time at bsky.social. Lots to come on tonight's show. The first Extra Time of 2026. We'll be announcing the TippFM Sports Star of the month for December. We'll do that before we go off air at 8 o'clock this evening, and we'll also be catching up on events in Fethard Town Park, where Tipperary and Waterford drew 118 apiece in the opening competitive fixture of 2026. Seems like we've only just rolled over the new year and already there's competitive fixtures, because there's competitive fixtures in football as well, because our county senior footballers were involved in a match against Limerick on Friday night. They beat Limerick quite comfortably, and as far as I know, they're playing Cork and Kappa White tomorrow night in the second round of that competition. We look back on the county under-21 football and hurling finals as well. They took place on Stevens's Day. Lots of racing took place over the Christmas period. David Burns will be here to tell us whether or not that influences our choices or otherwise when it comes to Cheltenham. That's a couple of months away, but an awful lot of what happens at Christmas, I think, determines the markets ahead of that. We'll also have local soccer with Barry Ryan before we go off air this evening. Our text number is 083 311 3311. Let's catch up with Liam Cahill. He spoke to John O'Shea of this parish after the 118 apiece draw in Fethard Town Park. It was postponed. It was supposed to be played in the Clonmel Sports Field, sold out Clonmel Sports Field, but at the 11th hour the pitch was deemed unplayable and everyone had to hightail it over to Fethard at some degree of haste. But anyway, they got there. The match was played, 118 apiece. Here's what Liam Cahill made of it.
We made quite a number of changes there through the second half and at half time, so it's always leaving you that little bit open for your flow to disappear when that happens, and that's not down to the lack of effort from the players. It's just that when you change personnel midstream through a game, it can have its effects, and I think that's what happened this tonight. We just introduced a lot of different personnel that allowed maybe Waterford to get a foothold on it there midway through the second half. And in credit to Waterford on the night, they deserve to get something out of the game. They look really fit and tenacious and look really strong on the tackle and look like a team that have a lot of work done, so fair play to them.
I suppose to come back down now, the Waterford play Kerry midweek and you'll be playing them next weekend, so you'll know going into that game what you have to do if you want to get to a final. Like, would that be planned? Would a final the following week before the league final? Was you have that factored into your preparations? The possibility of that?
Yeah, that's the whole idea. We'd be hoping that had you got the result tonight, you'd go to Tralee next weekend with the opportunity of winning down there, and then the Munster League final the week after, leading into the National League. But we'll have to plan on our feet now and start thinking about the eventuality of not being in the Munster League final, and have alternatives lined up to make sure that we're in as good a shape possible leading into the first round of the league.
What's the story on Alan Tynan, Liam? Do you know yet?
Yeah, Alan picked up a shoulder injury this evening, so it's a bit early to tell yet, but he looked to be in quite a bit of pain there after the incident, so hopefully that's not too bad, but it's definitely a shoulder injury of some sort.
Even if the changes disrupted you, Liam, at least you got leg signs into a lot of the players so early in the season. Yeah,
I think so, and look, that's the whole objective. It's trying to get matches. Credit to Fethard Town Park here today for being able to host the game at very, very short notice. We're really grateful for that, because and in fairness to Clonmel Sports Field, they did all in their power to make the game happen, but unfortunately the elements paid I suppose inputted big time in relation to that, with the frost not clearing in time. So thanks to Fethard here for having us. But it's all about getting game time into fellas. As I said, it's that time of the year. It's coming to decision time leading into the National League, where we'll have to tighten up our panel and tighten up our numbers, and so it just makes maybe my job and the management team's job that little bit more difficult now over the next fortnight to 3 weeks before the start of the National League to pin down a panel that we're bringing forward with us into the National League.
I suppose over the 3 matches now, most of the lads that you have in there have got game time now, and could we see maybe next weekend a few more changes from today?
Yeah, there is. There's still a couple of more fellas there that deserve and warrant a bit of proper competitive action, and we'll do our best to give them every opportunity to stake a claim on the panel for the start of the National League. But it is the month of January is creeping away, and I know it's early. It's only the 2nd or 3rd of January today, but it is coming at us fairly quick with the last weekend of January being the start of the National League. So we have a bit of work to do now to get our house in order leading into that.
That's Liam Cahill speaking to the assembled media after the 118 apiece draw against Waterford in Fethard Park on Saturday afternoon. John O'Shea was there. How are you, John?
Evening, Ronan.
Evening to you, and Happy New Year to you and yours over in West Tip. Hope you're all well over there. Lots to talk about in terms of West Tipperary, which I'll come to in due course. But before I do, I want to ask you about fellas who may or may not have put their hands up. And you know where I'm going with this, with your West Tipperary hat on. You might tell us about Leamy and Jack on the freeze, because we've seen Jack play underage. We know what a unit he is. We know how skillful a hurler he is. How did he fit into senior competitive hurling?
Yeah, he's involved now in a few games there, pre-season games at night below in Fethard there a couple of weeks ago under lights there, and again he came on at half time on the other day. He came on for Paddy McCormick there, and he seems to have slotted in very, very well into it now. He has bulked up a good bit now since he was on the peripheries there a couple of years ago, but it was probably a bit soon for him at the time. But came through a great season, as you said, with Golden there, was one of the leading lights with it, and he just seems to slot into it nicely. I think myself he's done himself no harm in those couple of games that he was involved in. He'd be one of the guys, in my opinion, that would have put up his hand for inclusion,
Well, I think he's put up his hand on the basis of his performances at club level, which is always gratifying, I think, for a lot of club hurlers around the county to know that if you do perform into the latter deep stages of a county championship, irrespective of the grade, that you will come to the attention of the selectors.
Yeah, because and that's the one thing Cahill has done, and he reaches out there, and as you said, irrespective of the grade you're playing at, because if you go down through that, we'll say that panel of what was it, 39-40 last year, including the extended panel there, and you go down to the respective clubs there, that certainly is the case with Cahill and his backroom team, And
yeah.
It's a good. It gives everyone a chance,
There's a lot of youngsters on that. It was obviously we're still in very much an experimental territory, and will be, I would imagine, even through the league as we start to get what people are most focused on, which is a championship squad together. But if you just look at, say, the inside forward line, which started Paddy Creedon, who scored a goal, Paddy McCormick, again, players well known to us. McCormick graduating from the underage ranks, Paddy Creedon coming back into the squad after a very good underage career.
Yeah, look at what remember. Paddy McCormick was on that match day panel for the All Ireland there back a couple of months ago. As you said, on the back of a good 20 campaign. Paddy Creedon, was around there a few years ago. Dropped off the panel there, played a bit of football since that, but didn't go away, and he took his goal very, very well against Waterford in the first half there last week, So he's another guy that's there. Look, there's probably over. I didn't see the Kilkenny tip match below in Temple 2 tonight, but I've seen the one in Limerick now, and against Limerick, I should say, and the other day, and there's probably a couple of the lads there mightn't have, probably didn't do themselves justice maybe, and as you said, he'll be trimming the panel there. There's probably about 50-51 at the moment, and he'll be trimming it back to probably 40 for the league, I suppose, around that number. So there's going to be 10 or 11 lads that's not going to make the cut for the league, and as you say, and I think that league has gone so competitive now since they changed the structure from Division 1A and 1B, and look at, in reality, 1B is Division 2, and all the top teams are in Division 1. So and Tip got to the final last year coming to, so like it doesn't do it didn't do them any harm last year to get to the league final, and it certainly didn't do the county board coffers any harm reaching a league final. And you see, it's going to be a balancing act now, because there was up to last year the league that you could pick out, we'll say two or three counties that was a shoe-in you were going to beat them, like, and that was, not disrespecting anybody, and you could afford maybe to throw in 3 or 4 maybe in, whereas last year during the league you're probably only maybe getting maybe 2 at a time, mixing them in with it and giving them that match day and against the top good opposition, because as I said, there's no handy games now in the league that there used to be.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I remember previewing the league with my experts on this show 12 months ago, and the kind of talk was, well, our first game is against Salt Hill, we mightn't get anything out of that, and then it's hard to see where we're going to pick up a win. And that was, I suppose, reflective of where we had come from after the previous year's championship campaign. How wrong we were. We went all the way to a league final, beat Clare in the Semple Stadium, and the last league game started with a good win against Salt Hill. I suppose the point I'm trying to make to you is that the league has its detractors, but what it did do for us last year was it blooded fellas like Kennelly, like Dara McCarthy, fellas who went through a league campaign and showed Liam that they can do it on cold spring days and then transfer that into the hot summer championship fair.
That's right, and towards the previous year, where we were up against the Westmeads and Antrims and all those, but twas in at the deep end in Salt Hill. Throw in Robert Doyle into that as well there, and you see what happened right down through the year. But it was now probably, I suppose, we were a bit anxious, I think, going into that, into Salt Hill in that league. But I think they showed Carl and they showed everybody what these lads were capable of. Now, probably that match against Galway last year, Galway probably weren't up to as much as what we would have expected, and Galway probably got caught as well in that first match with Tipp's team, as you said, after the first round, and they took it up from there and went right through the league, got to the final, didn't win it, into the 2 weeks after that, then into the Munster Championship, and away you go again. And but was the experience that got, and most of the we'll say the panel that was there for the league were there for the championship, and justified their
selections, absolutely, yeah.
They did, of course, and
I wanted to ask you about another player actually who had a really good club championship campaign with Nina Erogue, and that's Josh Keller, who's a fella that a lot of people will know from his underage career, but again, might be a year or two early for him, but it's good to see him in a Tip senior jersey.
Yeah, but he was on the extended panel last year. Sorry, when I say last, 2025. He was on that extended panel as well. Fella I liked. He had a good club. Campaign, as you said, and he was on for the first half there last week, and he certainly didn't do himself any harm at all. That he went off probably at 8 or 9 minutes to go, in Fethard, but certainly didn't do himself any harm at all. They're justified to me. He will still be on that extended panel for the coming year.
Yeah,
at least on that. Put it that way.
What happens next? The structure of this competition always amazed me, because I was looking at the Leinster equivalent, and I see that Kilkenny's hopes of retaining the Walsh Cup have ended without bucking a ball. So how does it fare in the Munster League?
All right, you see, the different provinces have their own rules for the various counties. The way it is in Munster, six counties in Munster, two groups of 3. Tip are in a group with Waterford and Kerry. Tomorrow night, Wednesday night now, Kerry go to Dungarvan to play Waterford, and next Sunday, Tip will go down to Tralee to play Kerry.
Kerry, yeah.
I think Cahill is a bit disappointed, I would say, insofar as he didn't get a win in Fethard, because had he got a win in Fethard, he was probably 99% sure of getting to the Munster final, and that could afford him the chance of throwing in a few extra lads probably at the deep end against Kerry. But the only thing about it now, Waterford and Kerry, and you would expect Waterford to beat Kerry on Wednesday night. So, but Tip will know going down to Tralee how much they have to beat Kerry by to qualify for the league final the following Sunday. And I'd say he'd like to see some of these lads up against whoever will come out of the other side. You're going to have
Clare beat Limerick by 2 points.
And then Cork are playing Clare on Wednesday night, and then Limerick. So they'll be up against one of those teams should they get to a final. And, okay, that's the week before the start of the National League, but I'd say that all that's factored into his block of training and his preparation.
I want to move on because you caught sight of the Arvale Rovers win in the County Under-21 football final. It's been a great year for the West, is the first thing I'd say to you, hasn't it, in terms of success for teams out West? Look at
especially football, because of the nine county championships that were on offer at adult under the auspices of the adult board, 5 of those county finals came to the West, and I suppose with the exception of the senior, which is by far, you say the likes of Mile Rovers and Commercials are way out and in front of Lochmore, and Lochmore into it. Like, the West wouldn't be there in that, but other than that,
not yet, John.
Not yet, but see, the problem is there's 12 intermediate teams, all with the exception, all the teams in the West, with the exception of Aherlow, are in intermediate. So, with the best will in the world, for any of those teams to get back up to senior, there's only one team can go any year,
Yeah.
But it is like that's up to intermediate football. It's very, very strong in the West. There's no doubt about that. Golden went down in the semi-final by a point to the eventual winners, Sarsfields, who beat Rockwell in the final. You know what I mean? By an extra time. So, like, it has been, a good year for football in West Tipperary. But to get back to the original question, Arvale Rovers, they doubled up on the A with the under-19 and the under-21 A, and I'd say their under-21 team, there's probably 11 of that team eligible for next year, and probably 8 or 9 of them eligible for the year after, meaning that under-19 team this year, there's a lot of those played below in Fethard there, and that's whatever it was, St. Stephen's Day. I suppose in one way it might be a good thing for them. They got relegated from senior down to intermediate. Now, they had been labouring, and I think that if there was relegation in 2024, they would certainly have dropped down, or they would be there or thereabouts. It's a nice platform now to get these young fellas that they have, get them into adult, as I call it, adult game time. With a few of they still have 4 or 5 very, very experienced players in it, and I suppose these young fellas now will be pushing those lads on to get back on it. Because,
but is it reflective of green shoots coming out of Tiptown? Because let's face it, from the population they have, from the fact of how successful the Abbey are at competing at Munster level, they're growing into their clothes a little bit.
Yeah, and if you throw the under-17 coming back up behind them as well, look at. Over the years, Arvale have been very, very strong at under-21. Okay, because they're 4th title ever in county, but in West Tipperary they have been very dominant at both themselves and Galtee Rovers. But they seem to have dropped off, come to, and every now and then, even at hurling, up to under-21, they'd be there or thereabouts, but they seem to drop off at that. But I think they have a good bunch of lads over them now, and that's the thing. To retain those guys, that's the big thing for Arvale Rovers now. But they're in a good space, you see, with a big block of when you take we'll say the 17s, we'll say just gone out there, there'll be some of them eligible, we'll say for adult football to coming up, the 19s, 21s, you'll see a sort of a different Arravale team coming out this year than what you had for a while. And with I think they're all nearly in-house again, you know, their management team. And I think they're certainly they're a team to watch out for in the future. Like, if they got out of, you know, it's going to be hard, we know, to get out of intermediate because of the, you know, three teams came down, and if you go back over the last number, they're back down to 12 now from 16. So there's a lot of teams there that will have their eye on promotion again. So I think it's going to be a real dogfight the intermediate football for 2026, Ronan.
No doubt about it. Let's just talk about the game itself. I fancied Moyle Rovers to win this just based on what I'd seen them perform, particularly against Commercials earlier on in that competition. Were you surprised by the result? You'd have seen more of Arravale Rovers than I had. You know,
I wasn't surprised, but I had heard an awful lot. I hadn't seen Moyle Rovers playing, but I had heard about him, and I had heard about, especially as you mentioned, that game against Commercials, and heard it from guys in the know, South guys. But I had also seen the way Rovers, Arravale, played in the West, and you know, they started off with a sweeper, which surprised me, and it turned out that was a disaster.
Moyle Rovers did.
Arravale Rovers
started with a sweeper.
Arravale Rovers started with a sweeper, and they went a goal and 4 points and no score down after 11 minutes there. And straight away they realised it wasn't working. Donnelly, the manager there, they reverted back to normal again because they hadn't implied a sweeper. And I spoke to Donnelly afterwards, and they were sort of wary at the beginning of, we'll say, Paddy O'Keefe and a couple of those lads there, Cronin and them, for Moyle Rovers, but it was a total disaster the way that. So they went 1-4 down, and then they reverted back to normal. Arden Jones kicked a couple of 2-pointers, and at half time they only trailed by 2 points, 7 to 8 points, and it was like they were in the game. They were in the game definitely at half time. You could see that they had you know. Moyle Rovers only got 3 points there for the second quarter of that game, and 7 minutes into the second half, they got the goal, having you know gone down 3 points down at that stage, and all of a sudden, and for the well worked goal by Adam Ryan getting on the end of it there, and Kieran Kelly. Doing good work before that, and all of a sudden to the 1-8 game on, and they kicked on. Then Evan Ryan came up with the goals, and he kicked the 45. So the next thing they're into they're going to pint up. Pints were exchanged there, and it was after 15 minutes there into the game there, John Paul Lohan put him in front again, 111 to 110, and then they got their second goal. Alex Webster got in for it. He was a guy now, funny enough, that in 2024 had a great run with the seniors, and he faded off the scene a bit for 2025. He was played most of his stuff with their junior team. So he came back a ball came back off the upright there. A ball from Adam Ryan came off the upright, and a very narrow angle. He got a goal, and that put him 211 to 110. Up, what was it, 6 minutes to go. But then, again, Moyle Rovers came back at him and could have snuck it in the finish there, because a ball 2 minutes into at a time, a high ball into the square was fielded by Paddy O'Keefe. He turned and struck the upright with it. So that was as close as it got. So Arravale ran out 211 to 112 running there. And you know what? It was an exciting game of football. A big crowd in Fethard. That was the second.
Yeah, because Aherlow Gales won the B.
Yeah, and but it was both games enjoyable football, and the one thing it has showed me this year was these new rules are really, really making football attractive again. because I think I said it to you before there, over the last number of years, it was
a hard watch.
A lot of the games to watch, you know what I mean?
No,
but this year, I tell you, I really, really enjoyed the football this year. And them 2 games in Fethard, was a great example of probably how football should be played, put it that way.
I completely agree with you in terms of the new rules, in terms of the enjoyability of watching the game played now. John, as always, many thanks for your time this evening and your efforts over the course of the last year. We look forward to working with you next year.
All right, Ronan.
Thanks indeed, John. Take care of yourself. That's John O'Shea joining us there with news of Aherlow Gales winning the B, 2-11 to 12 points winners over Knockmeal Down Gales. And in the A Football Championship, it finished Arvale Rovers 2-12, Mile Rovers 1-12. We'll take a quick break. We'll have news of the A and B hurling when we come back in a sec.
Extra time on TippFM. The TippFM Sports Star of the Month with the Talbot Hotel Clonmel. Multi-award winning wedding specialists with state-of-the-art leisure facilities and spa with food served daily.
The TippFM Sports Star of the Month.
Get your nominations in now.
Yeah, we'll be announcing the January winner of the TippFM Sports Star of the Month before we go off air this evening at 8 o'clock. Our text number is 083 311 3311. Good evening and Happy New Year to Noel Dundon. How are you, Noel?
Good evening, Ron. Many happy returns.
Yeah, Noel, you were in. You saw the Holy Cross game. I think that was played over in, where was it? Kappa White on Stevens' Day.
On St. Stephen's Day in Kappa White.
Yeah, very comprehensive win for Holy Cross Ballycal, and they probably now Bursley were very good in the north, and they were very good in their semi-final win as well. It has to be said, but Holy Cross, with the pedigree they've shown at underage over the last couple of years, with the names, some of them household at this stage, they were going into this game as firm favourites, but I don't think anyone, no matter how jaundiced a view you might have, saw a margin of victory this wide.
Yeah, that's probably a fair assessment of it. All right, Roland. Like Borsley, as you said, they had a good win in that semi-final over Tumivara. I saw that game actually over in Borsley, and it was a fine contest. And they progressed then to win the North final and find themselves in the county final against a very fancied Holy Cross team. You're talking here about a Holy Cross team that had 11 seniors in their ranks, and that probably says a bit about the senior team too, the fact that it's so young maybe at the other end. But it was also a Holy Cross team that was without the county under-20 centre-back and the senior centre-back, Jim Ryan, who has had cruciate knee surgery following the senior hurling campaign. But a really, really, really good under-21 team, really strong, mobile, able to score and really well able to defend. They had a very comprehensive win over Thurles Arches in the mid-final. It played in Fethard, and the 2 semi-finals then were played in Fethard as well, and it kind of maybe gave a false impression maybe of the two teams and what they might be able to do or whatever, and I think probably the board were anxious that the final itself would be played on grass and in daylight, as would be fit a county final,
Yeah.
And Borsley came full of energy and they came full of fight. And they took the game to Holy Cross for patches. Like Holy Cross were off to a very quick start, and Borsley came back at them and had it back to I think a point kind of midway through the second half. The first half, midway through the first half, until Holy Cross got a grip again, and after that it was all one-way traffic.
Yeah, I mean it's not just the fact that they're so well coached or whatever, but they're very fluid. They're a fluent team, Holy Cross, when you watch them play.
Yeah, I guess that's coming from the fact that they've been together from underage, from under 12 they were winning county championships all the way up along. They know each other inside out, and as I mentioned, Jim Ryan missing out on the under 21 campaign with that injury, and Ty Gould just slotted back into centre back and did a masterful job there at centre back. A real man of the match performance there at the heart of it, and the fact that he was captain as well and playing against somebody's cousins too, which they would probably get a little bit of an added incentive from. But they're just able to move guys around like that without any great difficulty at all. They were missing Tony Marr and Jack Lahart for much of the year as well through injury. Now they were back for the concluding stages, but early on you wouldn't know that they were missing because they are so strong and they are so well drilled, and I think they just know each other inside out. The game that they play is really, really competitive and really, really skillful. This off the shoulder hurling coming from the full back line. Full back Evan Morris scored a point in the second half of the game, and it was a masterful one. Like, just won the ball in his own full back line, broke out with it, passed it off, went on, took the pass, gave another one, and over the bar. Like, stuff that if you were Boris Lee, man, you're looking and you say, well, what
how
can
do you
actually do
defend?
to stop
Yeah,
that?
how do you defend that? It's a very fair point, and I suppose they're not going to thank me for asking this question in Holy Cross, but this is going to have to translate into senior success at some stage. You couple that team with the likes of the Brian O'Mara's, the likes of Carl Barrett's, etc., who are still doing a job for Holy Cross. You've the makings of a fine side.
Yeah, you have. And they got to the county semi-final this year, beaten by Lockmore, and probably got a little bit of an education on how to manage games and how to win games and what's needed at senior level. But I think it was always going to be, as I mentioned earlier on, that there's so many young guys on that senior team. It was always going to be a learning curve for them moving forward into the senior ranks, because what you face at senior level is nothing compared to what you face, what you would have faced at underage. They're just two totally different animals. And Holy Cross probably found that out this year, but they'll be all the better for that experience. Like, the whole county is saying to them, there's a county championship in this team and it's coming, and if you win one you could win a few and all that. But that has been said to many other clubs in the past as well, and many other teams, and it might not have materialised. And I think they're really, really conscious of the fact that all the talk in the world won't do it. It actually has to be done on the field. But there's a real determination there to pursue it and to go after it,
Is it just a generational thing, do you think, that they just happened to get a fine crop of youngsters who came along at the same time? Or is there more to it than that? Is there something, sort of decisions that were made 10 years ago, maybe at an under 8 or an under 10 level, that are beginning to reap rewards at this point?
Yeah, well, I would say it's probably a combination of factors, Roland. One of the big factors is that, maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago maybe, a decision was made to develop the facilities in Holy Cross. And first of all, the John Dial Centre was built, a magnificent facility there for the club, and the AstroTurf pitch was added to the back of that, an AstroTurf section. It's not a full pitch, but it's a section at the back of the John Dial Centre, plus the second field was added, and they've all enhanced the facilities enormously. But it also meant that the facilities are available for all the teams from under 6 all the way up along to senior to play all year round if they wish. And the AstroTurf from kind of next week on, you'll be killed for a slot on it, for an hour, and that's the way it is between hurling, camogie, ladies football, and it's brilliant. So I think that there's that element of it. The facilities end of it was put in place, and the development committee there, led by Tom and Margaret Comfort and Michael Lowry and others, they were the ones who kind of drove that on. The late Mick Hassett was the chairman of the club when the decision was taken, and they drove that on, and it led on to the establishment of the Cut Loose Festival, which kind of paid for all that development, But then on the hurling side of it, you had a situation where the juvenile club was seen as being extremely important, and players were looked after very well in terms of the coaching that was made available to them. An awful lot of ex-seniors and ex-players got involved at underage level to drive on that coaching. And the challenge for Holy Cross and for every other club, I guess, in the county is to make sure that continues. One of the big impediments to getting a guy to come back and coach in his club is the game of golf, because when lads are finished playing, they love to play golf, and it's a great game and all that, but it takes up a lot of time, and maybe fellas don't have the time to commit then to coaching. But Holy Cross has been fortunate that they've found plenty of coaches who will come in at the different levels all the way up along and drive it on, and I suppose the challenge for them is going to be to continue that on as well. And the third factor then is the fact that you had such a great bunch of players coming together. You know, they happened to come together. They worked really hard. They had a real appetite for it. And what is it, that quote from the famous golfer? It was a Sam Snead: "The harder I practice, the better I get."
Yeah.
You know, or the luckier I get.
Luckier I get.
And
it is, yeah.
Yeah, and it's something similar with hurlers. I think the harder you practice and the harder you train, the luckier you'll get on the field. And I think that's probably one of the things that Holy Cross and many other teams would bear testament to as well. That you work hard, the results can come. You know.
Yeah, Kilruan McDonough's 4-17 defeated Drummond Inch in the B final. Good win for Kilruan McDonough's. I don't think you caught any of that, but again, good crops of hurlers, I'd imagine, up in Cloughjordan.
Absolutely, yeah, and you know, it's not too long ago that Kilruan were senior county champions as well, you know, and like those under 21 hurlers would have been maybe 16, 17 at that stage when Kilruan won that title, and you know, looking at their club mates kind of inspires them to drive on a little bit, you know, and you know, I'm also looking at that Drummond Inch team as well, which came through a very tough MIG campaign and found themselves in the county championship, and they're looking at a situation where they want to build on what happened at senior level last year too, and those guys will be trying to put a hand up to say to the senior management, look, we're here, give us our chance, infuse the team with youth maybe, which is a little bit like what Liam Carl did with the Tip senior team this year, and give youth its fling, you know. Just
on that, before I let you go, certainly youth is getting its chance at the moment with Liam's selections for the games against Limerick, Kilkenny and then against Waterford, and we had quite a youthful team that played senior championship this year. So many of them, their first time ever in Croke Park was that game against Kilkenny in the All-Ireland semi-final.
Yes.
I've made this point several times on air. I wouldn't swap Tipperary's future with anybody, any team, because of not only are we producing our underage success at both minor with James Woodlock and at under 20 with Brendan, is feeding a conveyor belt into Liam, but he can only have a panel of a certain number, you know, and I'm sure the county board treasurer is looking at it going, well, we're going to have to trim this at some stage, Liam, because you can't keep this going. It's going to be a very difficult conversation he's going to have with a couple of lads who won't have done themselves any harm, but they're justice in the room on the bus for them, really. Yeah,
and what you're saying is very true, Ronan, and I remember meeting Liam Carl, it must be 10 years ago, when he was involved with the minors. I met him down in Thurles Shopping Centre one Saturday morning, and we stopped up and we were having a conversation, and he had explained to me that he had a very difficult morning because he had to tell a number of the guys on the extended minor panel at the time that they were no longer required for the panel or whatever, you know, and that's a very, very difficult conversation to have because a lot of stuff comes into it, you know, the kind of state of mind of...
Sure, when you're a minor, you think when you're playing minor, you think it's the only thing in the world, like, you know, you can't see past it, like.
Exactly, and when you're left off the panel, then it's the end of the world. You know what I mean? So he had a very difficult conversation, and at that stage, I kind of got from Liam, which I had known, I suppose, that I got the sense of a guy who really cared about the players, not just the ones that he was selecting, but also the ones that he was forced to disappoint. And I'm sure that's going to be the same way when it comes to the senior, because a decision will have to be made, as you said, as to who's going to stay in the panel or not. The one thing from his point of view, you've alluded to it, the fact that there's such talent there with the minor and under 20s coming through. The very last person on the Tip senior panel, number 40 on that panel, is being challenged by guys who aren't on it. So they have to shape up, because there are plenty of fellas knocking on the door. And I hear this conversation all the time about the amount of demands that are on the inter-county player, and they're in the gym 2 nights a week and they're training 3 nights a week, and you know, if there's 10 nights in the week, they'll be at it every night. But the bottom line is that if 2 or 3 fellas decided, no, this isn't for me, there'll be 30 waiting to get into the panel as well, you know, and that really feeds the whole sort of frenzy within the panel to progress. So you've got your 15, the guys are pushing to get into the 15, they don't get to the 15, they're pushing to get into the 26 on match day, and then at the rest of the panel, they're pushing to stay in the panel, you know. So that competition is really what drives it, you know. So I'd be like you, I wouldn't swap Tip's future for anyone anyone. And to be perfectly honest, I wouldn't swap last year for anything either. You know?
No, it was great. And I don't know if you caught the Blue to Gold documentary. Yeah, it was great production quality on it, and thoroughly enjoyed it over a Christmas period. But it tells its own story about where we came from. The Kilworth scenes I thought were very interesting as well. Some of the gym scenes gives you a little bit of a fly on the wall view of what it takes to become an intercounty hurler.
Yeah, it does, and I think it also, the fact that a lot of the interviews were done post All Ireland, and there was an element of reflection as well, that players were able to stand back and management were able to stand back and actually reflect on what they had achieved and reflect on where they have come from. Because often, as the season progresses, it's so helter-skelter, you don't get time to take a deep breath and look back and see, what has happened in the last fortnight, 3 weeks, because it's the next session, the next match, the next session, recovery, on we go again,
And the point was made, you're dead right, the point was made, I think, by the sports psychologist with the team. His name escapes me now, but you'll probably know.
Yeah.
But like, these fellas are amateurs, if it was a professional game, they'd have 2 days recovery and they'd go again, but they're back at work Monday morning, roofing, teaching, whatever they're doing, and they're back in the pool or the gym on Tuesday after a senior, and then may well be playing senior championship the following Sunday afterwards, with the structure that is there at the moment. We ask a lot of them.
Yeah, we do ask a lot of them, but I think that it's probably the beauty of our games as well. The fact that I suppose we're fortunate enough around mid-tip, and that you can go into any of the swimming pools or the gyms in the Thurles area, and you're likely to bump into some of the tip players, and you have that kind of access where you mightn't even be accessing them, just kind of saying hello or how are you, but the fact that they're there. Whereas you look at the professional setup, but we regard our tip hurlers as being like your Manchester Uniteds or your Real Madrids or whatever. They're at the very top of the game. You wouldn't have a hope in hell of getting access to any of those players, or just to be able to be privileged enough to say hello to them, and our guys are great guys, a great panel of players there. They stop, they chat.
They've given huge time in the course of the last, since Liam McCarthy was handed over to Ronan Maher. The players to a man have given a huge amount of time to going around the county and bringing the cup and bringing themselves to a huge amount of time.
They have, Ron, and that was one of the things that sort of that really disappointed me, or that really hit me from the comments from the players this year in 2025 after the All Ireland was won. I think it was Jason Ford referenced that they were almost embarrassed walking down the street.
Yeah, that was the word
in
he used.
2024. Yeah, it was. And, my own attitude was no Tipperary player should ever be embarrassed. They go out to do their best all the time. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, but they're our heroes,
Yeah, no doubt about it. Listen, we'll talk more as the season progresses. It's Liam was referencing earlier on in the show about, it's only a short time to the last weekend in January when the league will be up and running, and we'll have plenty to digest and conjugate over. Noel, as always, many thanks for your contribution. We'll talk again. Thanks indeed. Noel Dundon joined us there. Not at all. Joel Dundon, author of Blue to Gold, and excellent work he did on that. From the Ashes, actually, is the name of the book, which was the story of Tipperary's resurrection from 24 to 25. Our text number is 083 311 3311. One interesting text says, regarding the new football rule where a free can be brought 50 metres up the field to a scoring position if the ball isn't returned fast enough, is a bit harsh. Both on Gaeltacht and in the All-Ireland club and Dingle have benefited by these harsh decisions in the last minute of games. The punishment seems too harsh for the crime. I could not agree with you more, Texter. Certainly, like with the 2-point free, fellas, the 50 yards free is brought up, then they go back with the free to get it into a 2-point range. Oh my Lord, I tell you, some fellas who didn't give the ball back quick enough suddenly find themselves as the focal point, or the lightning touch rod, whatever you want to call it, for their club not getting to an All-Ireland club semi or an All-Ireland club final. It really is a very, very harsh rule, and if all of the Jim Gavin Football Review Committee's rules that I'd like to see amended, adjusted. I understand why it was brought in, and certainly I think referees are fans of it, but it definitely needs to be tweaked, because punishment should always meet the crime. Our text number is 083 311 3311. David Burns is on the line. How are you, David?
I'm good, Ronan. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you. Did you enjoy your Christmas racing?
Yes, great few days of racing, and we saw probably one of the best finishes in many a year to the King George at Kempton on
and a surprise too.
Day. Yeah, well, a bit of a surprise, but look, if you were listening to Harry Redknapp all the week, it was no surprise, and to Ben Pauling, they were basically saying that they were going to be banged there, they were, but look, the second and third didn't lose a lot in defeat either, to be fair. On the day there was very, very little separating them, so it was a really, really good race, and of course the jukebox man around 7-1 to win the Gold Cup, and probably, looking ahead now with the Dublin Racing Festival in a few weeks' time and Cheltenham then in March, you're looking at the markets taking a little bit more shape, but the Gold Cup market looks to be wide open at 6-1 the field. Last year's winner, I know the way you're thinking, and Gallopin the Shampoo we saw running so well as well in the Savills, finished third, first run of the season. Likely to see him in a few weeks' time at the Dublin Racing Festival, and then probably from there on to Cheltenham.
It's quite an intricate thing, you take Gallopin de Shampoo, he'll be priced favourably to win another Gold Cup, and his first race of the year is on the 27th of December. It just seems you're curtailing a season into 3 months and expecting a lot to peak a horse for St. Patrick's Day in Cheltenham.
Yeah, I suppose, Ronan, but the thing about Gallopin the Champ, I suppose you got to remember, is that he's getting that little bit older now. Yeah. So, he needs to be probably primed a little bit more differently than he has been in recent seasons. And to be fair, I think this is the ideal preparation and stepping stone for him. Run in December, run at the DRF, and then go straight to Cheltenham for another pop at the Gold Cup. And you won't be putting it past him. Like last year's winner, I know the way you're thinking, has run a couple of times now, and he's been disappointing so far. And he'll have to probably find plenty between here and March if he's to have any chance of going back retaining the Gold Cup. But I do think Gallopin the Champ, I thought there was plenty to take from that run at Christmas, and you'd be expecting him to step forward in a couple of weeks' time for Dublin.
Yeah, and that Dublin Racing Festival probably tells us more, would you say, about the Irish challenge for Cheltenham than, say, the Christmas features in Kempton or Leopardstown? Well, I do agree with you, yes, because look, the horses are going to be very much only a couple of weeks out from Cheltenham by the time the Dublin Racing Festival comes around, so they're going to be very much in their final preparations for the trip to the Cotswolds to Cheltenham, and you will learn an awful lot more. And look, we saw last year, I suppose you're talking about approaches. Gordon Elliott decided last year that a lot of his horses weren't going to go to the DRF, and then it was a very disappointing Cheltenham for him. This year his runners he took over Christmas, really, Gordon Elliott. Yeah, that was my next point, that Willie Mullins will be under pressure, I think, from Gordon Elliott come March. Well, yeah, look, I think you can never rule out Willie Mullins and Close Sutton. Look, their horses ran well enough, despite maybe not having as many. I think one of the things, we're so spoiled when it comes to Willie Mullins just having, a domination in the sport at national level, that maybe when we didn't see him winning as many races maybe as we'd all expect him to do so. But still, as he said himself, horses ran well. Quite a few of them will step forward plenty from that. But I was just making the point on Gordon Elliott. He had a really good Christmas festival. He has decided this year that a lot of his better horses are going to take their chance at the Dublin Racing Festival. So he's taken a different approach for his preparation heading into Cheltenham. We saw the likes of Brighter Days ahead in Lossiemouth. We were all looking forward to that over Christmas. Lossiemouth was extraordinary. She came out on top. But again, we're talking about Gallopin the Champ running a brilliant race for the first run of the season. Brighter Days ahead ran a brilliant race as well. And if we get the rematch of that again in the Irish Champion Hurdle in a few weeks' time between Lossiemouth and Brighter Days ahead, well, you're in for some treat. So, there's so many great battles to look forward to. You look at the markets, as I was mentioning, taking shape for Cheltenham. You've got Sir Gino. I'm not sure, Ron, if you saw him win over Christmas, but he was extraordinary in the way he travelled, the way he jumped. He's favoured for a champion hurdle. Lossiemouth, she's second favourite. The New Lion, who was a little disappointing over Christmas, but again, I just draw a line under that. And Tihupu keeps on improving in the Stayers division. Yeah. And he's the rightful favourite for the Stayers hurdle, but there's plenty of probably questions in there again around a number of the Willie Mullins runners, and particularly when you look at the Ryanair Chase, that's probably one of the most open races going to Cheltenham. And also Ilete Tampo was brilliant over at Sandown for Willie Mullins. That was a superb performance. Marine Nationale, like, that horse didn't win, but that deserves a special mention over Christmas. Like, he lost maybe, I'd say, 20 lengths, like when he nearly came off Sean Flanagan, somehow stayed on, and he was narrowly
beaten in what was a brilliant finish. So, like, there's an awful lot of clues to what we're likely to see in the coming weeks that we've seen at Christmas. But then you might think there's a lot of clues, and then there'll be a lot of upheaval as well in different markets and the way runners are going to perform.
I just want to get your view on one other thing, the TippFM Sports Star of the Month for January. Lots of great nominations. Stephen Rosney received a lot of nominations. He got to the last 16 of the WDF Lakeside World Darts Championship in December. Clonmel FC were nominated. Brian Barrew's Camogie Club were nominated. But the winner goes to the winner for December of the TippFM Sports Award goes to Billy Loughnane, a 19-year-old Thurles-born flat jockey. Broke the record for most wins in a calendar year this century when he won his 222nd race of 2025 on New Year's Eve in Wolverhampton. For 19, that's an extraordinary achievement.
It's an extraordinary achievement. He's an extraordinary young talent, and he's riding an awful lot of winners in the Godolphin Blue of those 222, and that'll tell you the talent that he is being put up by the best owners and the best trainers as well in the UK. It's an extraordinary performance. He really is a talent that I think he's going to be top class. I don't think anyone in the racing game talks only highly of Billy Loughnane, and it's the way he can cajole horses in. He can just give them absolutely extraordinary rides, and he is the future of that racing, and it's wonderful to see another top class star coming along in the game. And as I said, that number of 222 breaking the record is one thing, but doing it at the tender age of 19, like really the world is at this young man's feet.
I just think the confidence that owners have in him, Godolphin don't put just anyone on their horses, so if he's riding that colour blue into the winner's enclosure, I think that speaks volumes, more so than numbers are one thing, but it's the quality of the horses, that the rides he's getting, just the confidence owners and trainers have in him. It's extraordinary at that age.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. That's very true. But like I often say, they talk about the horses that these jockeys are riding. It's one thing to be getting the quality horses, but look, it's another thing we see
to finish it off.
We see Ryan Moore year in, year out doing it for Ballydoyle in the big races, and that's just that's why he's on board these top quality horses, is because it's the confidence that he has on board. And look, it's the ability that he has, and he's shown this. It's coming through now in the world, and people are talking about him a little bit more, but that's been there for the last number of years. He's really, since he started off, he was a top quality apprentice, and he's really come through very, very nicely. And as I said, there's a lot more improvement to come from him. At 19, he's still learning, but he's taken every opportunity that has been given to him at the moment.
David, always an education. Thanks for your time this evening.
Thank you, Ronan.
Not at all.
See you soon.
Thanks, pal. Cheers. That's David Burns with his view on horse racing. Just before we go, a quick word of Barry Ryan. How are you, Barry?
How are you, Ronan?
Happy New Year to you, pal.
And the same to you.
Not too much happening in the TSDL, but a sad bereavement, I think, suffered by St Michael's over the weekend, which meant that they couldn't. That their fixture with Clonmel didn't go ahead.
Yeah, look, the game was called off. A former, I think, a man who held multiple roles within the club, from secretary to, I think, even assisting with teams. A man who was held in really high esteem within the club. And I think it's important when, at any, whether it's GA or soccer or whatever, when people like that pass away,
Seamus Houlihan,
it's recognised. And Seamus obviously played a huge part in St Michael's, and I think it was obviously the right thing to mark the occasion with the game being off.
Absolutely, and so many great clubmen up there. I'm sure his name is added to so many great clubmen in St Michael's, and Arieste Gareva Anam, and condolences to his family, friends and former teammates. Just on the field, big win for Two Marlboroughs.
Yeah, look, I suppose sometimes it's a great opportunity when all the other games fall victim to weather and different circumstances, and you get an opportunity to put points on the board. I suppose it's what we always say, you'd rather the points on the board than the games in hand. So I think Burris took their opportunity and took it in a little bit of style. 7-1, a couple of goals for Jamie Lee, Jake Jordan, all the usual suspects. And look, it moves them back to the top of the table, and I suppose that's all you can want at this time of the season, and just keep trying to tick off the fixtures as they come.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, the draw for the last 16 of the Tipperary Cup was made as well, and Clonmel Town have drawn Peak Villa. Clonmel Town, with the season they're having and the relegation danger they're having, you'd like to keep that season going into maybe a cup campaign. It strikes me that's a bad draw for Clonmel Town in the last 16.
Yeah. I think Ian Cleary is probably thinking at the moment, we had ducks they drown. With all the draws he's seen in the teams that were there, with respect to everybody, they were hoping to avoid Peak Villa, St Michael's and Burris, and look, they've got Peak Villa, maybe the team that they would have wanted to avoid the most, I would say, out of the three. But look, it is what it is. Ian is probably a bit of a pragmatist as well, and he'll say that, look, whilst the Tip Cup will be a fantastic distraction, and it was great last season for Conor O'Neill, they got to the semi-final, and it coincided with a good run in the league as well. The Cup built a little bit of confidence, but this season that's obviously going to be a much bigger task now, with Peak Villa coming to the complex. So look, it is what it is. And well, I suppose the one thing they would say is last season Town knocked Peak Villa out of the Cup up in Turles. So I suppose at the same time it's certainly doable, but they would have preferred a different draw.
But it's the tie of the round when you start looking at it.
Doubt.
Yeah, Wilderness against Banshee Celtic, I think, could be quite interesting at 12 o'clock next Sunday as well, because Wilderness are banging form.
Yeah, look, Wilderness are banging form, and then Banshee are a little bit like a box of rebels. You never know what you're going to get, but on any particular day, Banshee are a match for anybody. And again, it often coincides with GA and what's happening, at this time of the year. But if Banshee turn up with a strong side, that'll be a real humdinger. The one thing you can definitely predict is it won't be 0-0.
No, I don't think so. Some of the other ties will probably go along expected lines, with Castletown facing Shoreside and Ballingarry, Galbally, and I think St Michael's have got Duala on Saturday night in the Tipper.
Yeah, look, it's funny. We're in that. The one thing where soccer is always, I suppose, much more different than GEA is we're in that kind of silly season at the moment with the transfer window. And if rumours were to be believed, Cashel has strengthened significantly in the window. So if those players are eligible in the Tipperary Cup, Cashel could finish the season quite strongly. So that they could be a team.
Well, you did see the likes of Ger Brown come back in after the Cashel's hurlers had finished, and he adds significant guile to that team.
Well, Ger Brown was the difference in the complex between Cashel and Clonmactown in what was a 6-pointer. Those guys, now Ger is a good soccer player at the best of times anyway, but when they come in with a level of fitness and power at that time of the season, we saw with Clonmactown, they looked all but doomed last year, and Jack Kennedy, Ryan Lamb and Kevin Fahey came in and completely transformed Clonmactown.
Barry, Happy New Year to you. We'll talk soon.
Thanks very much, Roland.
Not at all, Barry Ryan. Ian O'Connor produced us tonight.
At 8, good evening, I'm Tina Gates. Venezuela's captured president has denied